Hi folks, special extra here. We are on the last day of our construction and burning project at Eiríksstaðir, and I am here with William Short, what is your title at Hurstwic?
I am the manager of Hurstwic.
Manager of Hurstwic, the Thjóðan of Hurstwic. And he's going to give us a quick little tour of this facility that we have constructed and are about to destroy together, and why we're doing this, and what it's all about, and why we're all out of yellow clothing. So William, take it away.
Sure thing. So in our research on the Viking Age battle tactic of burning down the longhouse, we're doing a number of experiments here, but two major types. The tactic revolved around the house of the door, because that was the only place you could set a fire in a Viking Age turf house that are typical here in Iceland. So our research is focused on the door. So we're doing primarily door experiments, and this shipping container is helping us do a number of door-related experiments. So what we're doing is, I think it's going to be 7 identical experiments with only one parameter changed, so that we can do some deep science on the changes that parameter invokes. So that's the reason we're using shipping container and gypsum board and other modern materials, so that we can reuse it. We'll use a new door each time, but other aspects are more permanent and won't get burned up in the fire. So what we're going to do is create a door, a roof over the door, and a simulation of the passageway through the turf with appropriate wooden framing inside, and set the fire outside and see what happens as the fire ignites the door, passes through the door, and into the framework, the wooden framework, over the passageway through the turf. How long does it take? What are the temperatures inside? Are there gases inside that would prevent someone from standing there? Because the literary sources, such as the sagas, talk about people standing behind the door to try to put it out, with Misa, with Way, or talking with the burners outside, trying to negotiate the safe release of the non-combatants inside, such as women and children. So that's what this test is. We'll be doing 7 more or less identical burns, and the only thing we'll be changing is the nature of how we start the fire, the kindling.
And we've already done 4 of those burns on Friday and Saturday. This is Sunday, so we're expecting to do
at least
3
one more,
okay,
and maybe 2.
Okay. And we got several different results from having several different variables change. For example, adding more kindling, well, it was not intended as kindling originally, but adding more sticks up in the roof. Yeah. What's the variable under consideration today?
So the idea today is, if I'm understanding and remembering correctly, is an exact repeat of what we did yesterday. So we can have 2 burns that are truly identical and see how much variation we might expect from doing the same thing twice.
And the weather has changed considerably.
Yes.
It has been extremely windy on previous days. Now we have a sunny and for Iceland, relatively calm day.
Yes.
So that may affect things, of
Exactly.
course, too. There's a lot of instrumentation laid out here, both in the front, outside, and then on inside the shipping container. I'm going to walk that way and show folks.
Yeah.
A lot of this instrumentation set up by the Fire Protection Engineering Department at Worcester Polytechnic Institute.
Yes.
There's one of their PhD students now.
Can we step in?
Yeah.
So for instance, all these sensors here are measuring the gas concentration inside the house. So we're measuring things like oxygen concentration, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and hydrocarbons. We're also measuring temperatures at various heights above the floor, as well as many, many temperature sensors in the passageway behind the door and on the door itself. So you can see this passageway simulates the passageway that would go through the turf walls of a typical Viking Age longhouse here in Iceland. So we've got the normal framing elements made out of wood, but the turf parts we're simulating with gypsum. You know, like turf, it's very difficult to ignite, so it will simulate the turf, but will be reusable. So you can see the temperature sensors being installed on the door in preparation for our next burn here.
Mm-hmm. And how far out are we from that next burn?
I think we're pretty close right now.
All right, excellent. Let's go look at the main house too.
So the other experiment we're doing is much more of a real house with real materials, all sourced here in Iceland. And rather than building a full house, which we don't have the resources to do. We're building about half a house. So it is the full door, entrance, and the first room of the house. And the experiment will be to set the fire outside and see how long it takes for the fire to go through the door, into the framework above the passageway, and then into the room of the house. And how does it spread through that room? And presumably the spread through the other rooms would be very, very similar. So what we are basing this on, this is the house and the first room. It's called the Andiri in Icelandic. And all these dimensions are based on the dimensions of the house at Eiríksstaðir. And the replica house at Eiríksstaðir was based on the archaeological
That's back
excavation.
over there.
Yep. There's the replica house at Eiríksstaðir across the river from where we are set up. And our dimensions are the same as that. And so it's a wood frame over, and over it is turf walls and turf roof. And you can see the people on just finishing up the last of the roof, and our intent is to burn that later today. Now inside is the same kind of instrumentation that we're using for the container doors. So we'll be able to sample gases, we'll be able to measure temperatures in many, many places. We'll have heat flux, which measures basically the energy that the fire is putting out, how intense is the fire. And amazingly enough, we'll also be catching video inside the building as it burns. So we have high temperature cameras that should survive the fire, at least long enough to give us a view of what's going on inside.
And that was Christian, the PhD student from WPI, who came up with the design for the cameras that could withstand that.
Yep.
And he was the one we saw inside the shipping container setting up that material just then.
Yep. And I will add a word that the students have created some amazing instrumentation that they've been able to miniaturize enough to carry as checked luggage on the flight over to Iceland. It's amazing work.
It really is. Carry on checked luggage and not get arrested for it. Right.
So those are the experiments we'll be doing and have been doing. So the door burns in the container and the full Andiri later today. We're standing in front of the front door of the replica Viking Age house at Eiríksstaðir. This is a very typical 9th century turf house in Iceland. It's on the small size. This is very modest. There's much bigger houses in Iceland and even bigger houses in Norway. This is very typical construction for Iceland. And in our study of the Viking Age battle tactic of burning the house, it all focuses on the door. So why don't we take a closer look at the door? As you can see, the whole outside of the house is turf, and turf, while it does burn, ignites with a great deal of difficulty. So it's hard to set a fire on turf. The fires were set at the only exterior use of wood on the house, which is the door. So the kindling would be brought up to the door, the fire set here, and when the door was closed and barred, which would be the typical case when the house is under attack, the fire would somehow have to spread up through the door, through this area above the door, and into this passageway through the turf. You can see that the space above the rafters, below the turf, are these very small sticks. The sticks are there to keep the turf, which is a little bit wet, off the wood so the wood doesn't rot over the lifetime of the house, which could be 30, 40, 50 years here in Iceland. But these sticks are highly flammable. So once those sticks catch fire, the fire is going to spread through this passageway and then into the main framework of the house. And that is really what we're trying to test with our experiments, is to see how that fire spreads. Now this room here is the Andiri, the first room of the house. Maybe a way to describe it is to say that it's the mud room of the house, where people would take off wet clothing, would leave their equipment behind, and so on and so forth, and where tools and equipment would be stored. But in this Andiri, it is covered by a loft, which is speculative. We know that Viking Age people had lofts for sleeping, but maybe we can just step into the main room of the house and see the construction of the roof. Hello. So over here you can see the framework of the house, the beams that hold up the roof, and the turf is above those beams, the wooden planks there. And the raw turf is visible over here, which in this dark light might be difficult to see. But once this framework inside the house burns, the house is doomed. The structure will weaken, the turf will collapse, and people in here will be hit with falling debris, embers, and so on. But long before that, the temperature is going to be so great in here that human life is not tenable. In addition to that, the poison gases will accumulate in here. The oxygen will get too low to stay conscious. Carbon monoxide will increase, carbon dioxide will increase. The people in here are doomed. And what we're trying to find out is, how does it really compare to the descriptions we have in the sagas? And our preliminary experiments show, wow, there's not much time in here. Once the fire is set, these people have a very short time to do whatever it is they're going to do.
And if you're in Iceland or close enough to maybe fly this way today, we will be setting this house on fire mid-afternoon.
Yes, mid-afternoon is the plan, 3 o'clock.
Here at Eiríksstaðir, close to Búðardalur in western Iceland. Well, for now, from beautiful Iceland, we're wishing you all the best.